Good evening, everybody. Namaste and many congratulations and greetings for this beautiful day. And let's discuss for a brief moment what is the significance of a day like this beyond a holiday. I don't know if it was a holiday and such, but I think we are moving into times where not just Janmashtami, maybe a day before and after will also be declared a holiday. Because this is the time to tune into the reason why we are doing everything else. And Swami Ananda used to say that, like I mentioned in the beginning, that these are days when great ones came. So nice that we remember it. And part of the reason why we receive the blessings, we feel more joyful, perhaps things start moving or happening in our lives. First of all, also I wanted to welcome the online audience. Many students are watching from Vadodara, Ahmedabad and Coimbatore. So the reason why we all feel universally so uplifted, Swamiji said, was that a prayer was granted. Now maybe we didn't pray for Christ's or Krishna's birth thousands of years ago, maybe we did. But somebody did. And when Swamiji, like Babaji said in this time, he told Master Yogananda ji that you have to go to America. Master was very confused after his guru had said, yes, it's now or never. You must go, an invitation had come, and Master said, but what if I get lost? And also as a saint grows in strength, they also become so humble sometimes. I remember one time I was with Swamiji, and his nose was bleeding, and I held it for some time. I often tell people, what a blessing to touch his feet, but I got the rare opportunity to touch his nose. Which I don't know, otherwise if you're not a doctor, how would you get that? But anyway, while I was holding it, at least for 5-10 minutes you have to, I tried asking, he said, my body, this was towards the end of his life, is giving so many challenges. I wonder sometimes, what am I even doing over here? What use am I? What good do I do? And I was like 3 months into the path, and I said, no sir, Swamiji, your presence, see how many books you've written, and you are such an inspiration to everybody. Your very name and presence is so uplifting. I said, you've done so much. He said, really? He said, yeah, that's what they tell me. And I could see him right there, as if he had forgotten. They say we become a child all over again in old age, and especially on the spiritual path, when the ego goes, Swami says there's nothing left. No. So in that state, sometimes the great ones don't realize, but I want to come back to why is Janmashtami so important for us? Well, as we all know the story, I won't go in the details. Those were troubled times. People were being oppressed. In times of confusion has its own magnetism, Master said. It leads to more and more of it. People start losing hope, happiness flies away, and people start praying, Lord, we've known better times, help us. And that is a proof of God's love, the expression, the sending of great ones. Many times people, the avatars, the saints are so great that we find it much easier to confine them or consign them to mythology. Oh, who knows if they lived or not. And why? Swami used to say, even if Santa Claus lived or not, just the thought of him brings so much happiness. It's better to believe in him that way, for that very reason. Likewise, I think because this afternoon I was thinking, how did people respond to a birth like this, or as his life would unfold? I think a lot of happiness, hope, faith must have gone back. Oh yes, God has replied something. Look at the deeds of this little child. Miracles are happening around him. We had been foretold something is going to happen. Maybe this is the one. And also one of the greatest miracles that the saints do is not something which our eyes and senses can even see, or which happens, you might say, as we believe, in real time. Padre Pio, a great saint of Italy, once somebody asked him about the strength of Christ, who was 2,000 years ago, Saint Francis, who lived almost 1,000 years ago, and Saint Francis, Padre Pio, he said, the greatest miracle of Saint Francis was that even after 1,000 years of his birth, young men are still feeling so inspired reading about his life that they give up everything and they're becoming monks, nuns, devotees. So he says that is the greatest miracle. So on one level, we have remembered the date of birth, we are feeling the joy. For that speaks of perhaps some of the reason why they come. Master said that our land is blessed. In today's times, actually, Yogananda ji explained, he said Mahavatar Babaji in a past life was Krishna. And he said in today's times, he has still retained his form. There's that fun story where he calls his sister. And he says, I am thinking of dissolving my body back into the infinite. And that is serious matter. She said, my Lord, why? He said, what difference does it make? I can do the same work from cosmic consciousness. And what a beautiful reply she gave for all of us. She said, if it won't make any difference, then why don't you keep your form? And he said, so be it. He was outwitted. And such a beautiful, sublime, you might say, interaction they all have. But this happened in Banaras. And Master said, Babaji has retained his form. He is here to guide the prophets, Master said. He also guides the nations, leaders. He said his bigger role is to see our planet go through major changes. I remember when I was in school, many friends were saying they will go to America. Many doctors go to America. Americans come here on pilgrimage, many reasons. There are so many books and articles written on brain drain. And when I came on the spiritual path, I read Yogananda ji's explanation of what was really happening. He said, Mahavatar Babaji has bigger plans to unite East and West, and those plans started, I think, 150, 200 years ago. He said, great yogis of India are being born in American bodies, and he said, great Americans, businessmen and I think general citizens also are being born in India to bring about a material and a spiritual balance. I'm sure the same is happening by extension in other countries, because Master said Babaji, Krishna in today's times, he wants to see a revival of the spiritual energy. And Master said this teaching of Kriya Yoga, as it helps each person. And yesterday we had a beautiful discipleship ceremony, and I was telling devotees that as the years are turning into close to a decade now in Pune, I said, one of the greatest joys I feel is when I see in a new batch, spouses or siblings and families sitting together. And you say, yes, first came a child or first came the husband, now coming the wife. It is so beautiful to see that it rubs off. True education, true inspiration comes by osmosis. It cannot be taught. The scriptures themselves say that books cannot be gurus. Books don't teach. It is people, their behavior. Likewise, Babaji said, as one man, two people, groups, Guru Bhai's change. He says this planet will change. It will go through difficult times, but in those difficult times also, Yogananda ji said, those who love God, Babaji said they will be protected. Now, one challenge is that sometimes, I think all the time, this happens I think with all of us, the avatars especially are so great, like I said, that we find it convenient to put them in mythological books because they're inexplicable sometimes. But Swamiji said that it is very easy to draw on their blessings. Like I said, when we ask, call out their name, even mentally think of them, we feel joy, and that is a blessing right there. But I want to share a story which I don't know if many of us know. Certainly those who've been in Ananda, they probably heard of it. This was a very sweet interaction, a human interaction that happened between Babaji and Swamiji. That one day somebody came to Gurgaon where Swamiji was staying, and the person knocked on the door. He was a complete stranger. He said, I'd like to see Swami Ananda. And he said, okay, do you have an appointment? Swamiji was very busy. He was at that time writing some of his best books, doing television series. The work in India had just begun. I'm talking of somewhere around 2003. And Swamiji said he went through some of the greatest tapasya of his life. At one time he had dedicated himself to doing up to 20 videos a day, which later were broadcasted on TV. And Swamiji said, while I was doing the videos, I somehow had energy. He said, but after that I was so tired that one of the devotees said that in between breaks, when the lunch break came, she brought Swamiji a plate of food, and he said, I'd like to be alone. And she said, sure, and she left him with the plate and came 20 minutes later and she said, Swamiji was sitting on the table, holding his head, and the spoon hadn't moved an inch. And she said, sir, can I make something else? And he said, no, I just don't have the strength to lift the spoon. I'm somehow barely sitting. And that was the kind of tapasya he was going through. And then came this stranger one day, and he said, I have to meet him. I don't have an appointment, but I have a message from Babaji. So I don't know the details of the meeting, but the message he gave to Swamiji was, he said, Babaji appeared to me, and he wants me to let you know that he is very pleased with your Guru Seva. And he has said, if the need arises, he will also extend your life. Now, if you have read enough books and masters' stories about Babaji in past incarnations, you'll see that this is, I think, one of the boons he gives. He extends the lives of, in a past life, he had extended the life of his servant, which on one level Swami used to call him. He said, I'm the servant of the masters. He used to say, Christ said, my father's mansion has many rooms, and I'm serving him. And we are all part of those different places or realities, you might say, levels, and we are all servants of God. But Swamiji that day, he told that person, he says, thank you very much. I'm honored, and I will continue to serve him. And if you know, there was a reading that was found, astrological reading of Swamiji in 1958. Very extensive, so accurate about his birth, his family, many of the events of his life, that it was said that at the age of 83 he will leave his body. And Swami said, well, I am ready. But he said, because he said, I want to only live to serve my Guru. And if you will see the incidents of his life, around 83 he went through a very difficult period. Those who were with him, his nurse, she said, we all thought he is gone, he will leave us this time. But then, miraculously, he made a comeback, and he did some wonderful things. He, for example, you will know, started the Naya Swami order. Swamiji said, in time this order is going to guide the spiritual direction, attitudes of the planet itself. And at that time, one cannot help but think that Shankaracharya was also a disciple of Babaji in a past life, and he had started the Swami order. So it's such a blessing sometimes to be so close to such great events that they just unfold in our own lives. Now I want to share a little bit more about that. We sometimes consign them to such greatness that Swami says we don't know how to relate to it, and certainly we are not then able to apply it in our lives. But like I shared, he said every day in meditation, you and I have to cooperate with the reason why the avatars took birth. They wanted a change, a particular change. By attunement, we can tune into what is trying to happen in our times. And he said, think of one of the masters you're meditating on. What were the 2 or 3 defining qualities of their life? And especially the ones in which you feel a resonance, personal resonance. Because Krishna said each of us has to fulfill a dharma. And then when you feel that, Swami says towards the end of a meditation, feel your brain filled and vibrating with that. Bring that quality down your spine, through your body, and then visualize yourself playing it out in your day-to-day activity. He says, thus we can fulfill. Avatar means descent of divinity. And he says, then this way we can draw those qualities and give it a very practical manifestation. And that's why I shared the story of Swamiji, that he was dedicated, he was committed to serving, and he was always calling out for help. Why do we sometimes not feel divine help? Because Krishna says in the Gita, as long as you think you can do it, I will watch. But the day you invite me, I will come and take complete charge of your life. Even if it's not a complete charge, I feel we have to often be on that edge where we are praying, not frantically, but constantly. We are remembering, I once asked Jyotishji that, I'm feeling out of control. He says, that's the best place to be in, Aditya. He says, because that's exactly where you're always calling out to God, and you know you cannot do it. But God can do anything through you. He says, that is where God pushes us finally. If you're not experiencing that, he says, then there is reason to worry. So then finally, I want to share a little bit about the nature of Krishna, because Master and Swami were very kind to explain that to us. Sometimes we think the great ones are stern, aloof. They don't come after repeated prayers. A lady once told Swamiji, I have been meditating for 6 months and I haven't had samadhi. And Swami said, well, keep trying, but it takes a little bit more time and practice. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I come to most people at the end of their life. And Swami says, he's our friend, first of all. He is on our side. He's like our parent. If he created us, we have to cooperate with him to try to understand what is his will. And then we can fulfill that will. And why doubt freedom, Master said? Freedom should be felt in the moment. If we are doing the right thing in the moment, that freedom multiplied by the number of time we will live becomes eternal freedom. So his nature is caring. Master said the Bhagavad Gita was dictated with a smile on Krishna's face. Isn't that so consoling? He was very explanatory, as we know. He clearly lays out the attitudes, the pitfalls, the need for Guru, the need for devotion, the role of techniques, the daily lifestyle, the need for balance. And after all that explanation, we say, but he doesn't talk to us. So I think we need to count our blessings again and again, and Satsang helps. Janmashtami, special days like this help to remember those things. And finally, he was extremely playful. Because Master said the highest role which God himself likes to play, gurus like to play, is that of a friend. It's father, mother, dear one, great one. The great one is actually quite distancing sometimes. But to Arjun, Krishna was his friend. So I want to read a few stories which Master himself told about Krishna. And then we will go into a wonderful play which I'm very eagerly waiting. And when I was hearing some giggling during the meditation, I was thinking, those are the Krishnas. That's how Krishna must have been when he was a baby. So let's listen to some stories. I want to first start with one which it struck me when I was in Vrindavan. There's a beautiful statue where Krishna as a little boy has been shown. He's lifting the Govardhan mountain. The whole village is underneath. And we all know that story. And everybody is happy. They are feeling relieved, relaxed. They are very reverential towards Krishna. But I noticed something in that statue which really touched me. And in that statue there were close to 100 figures, and some figures were of cowherds who had their sticks. Now when you had to come under the shelter of the mountain, and it was not very high because Krishna was still a boy, so it was around 5 feet, you could say, or 6 feet. So you're standing there with your stick, and the sticks were touching the mountain. So a group of cowherds, this is all in their face, they're like, you and I are lifting this mountain. Isn't this amazing? Isn't this so nice that our sticks are able to hold this mountain up? And then Krishna is smiling and he lowers the mountain a little bit. And their sticks bend. And they're looking at their sticks. I saw that, I had never read it. And I said, this is so beautiful. The present Pope, he said, somebody asked him, if God is so powerful, why does he expect us things to do? Does he really want us to take some control of our lives? He said, of course. The trouble with man is he wants total control of things. He says we have to walk that thin line where we are asking God, what do you want? And how do you want me to act? So here we go with the first story. This was told by Master and Swamiji, so I'll tell you where Master's exact words start. Swami is relating it. The absence of ego consciousness does not mean that self-consciousness ceases to exist. Far from it. Rather, it is the sense of self made infinite. This great truth is described in Master's poem Samadhi in the following line. Ever present, all flowing, I, everywhere. Often with great enjoyment, he told the following story to illustrate a master's complete lack of ego consciousness. This is Master now. The gopis used to bring fresh cheese every morning to Krishna. Joyfully they would cross the river Jamuna to the other side where Lord Krishna lived. He relished that cheese because of the devotion with which they brought it. One morning, to their great dismay, the river was in flood. How were they to cross it? One of them then had an inspiration. Vyasa, a great disciple of Krishna's, lived on their own side of the Jamuna. This was the famous Vyasa who, years later, wrote the Bhagavad Gita. Let's go and plead with him to perform a miracle, the gopi cried. Eagerly, they all rushed to the hut where Vyasa lived. Sir, they cried, we've been taking cheese every morning to Lord Krishna. This morning, however, we can't get across. The Jamuna is in flood. Would you please help us? They smiled at him winningly. Krishna, 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 shouted Vyasa as if in anger. All I ever hear is Krishna. What about me? Does it never occur to you that I too might enjoy a little cheese? Well, what a dilemma. They deeply respected Vyasa, but after all, this cheese was intended for Krishna. If, however, the only way to get it to him was with Vyasa's help, what else could they do? Please, sir, they said, take a little of this cheese for yourself. Well, Vyasa took it. And then he ate, and ate, and ate. He didn't stop eating until he couldn't swallow anymore. There was only a little portion of cheese left for Krishna. Vyasa then hoisted himself to his feet and somehow carried himself to the river bank. Swami says now, how I, Walter, smile at the memory of the masters pantomiming that lumbering act. Jamuna, Vyasa cried on reaching the river, if I have not eaten anything, divide up and part. What on earth is he saying? Whispered the girls to one another. First, he stuffs himself like a pig, and now he cries, if I have not eaten? What a liar! What possible good can come of this adventure? To their amazement, the river parted. A narrow opening formed between two great walls of water. The girls crossed hastily to the other side, not stopping to puzzle out this mystery. They hurried to Krishna's cottage, crying out, Lord Krishna, Lord Krishna. Usually he stood at the cottage door, eagerly waiting their cheese. Today, however, there was no sign of him. Lord Krishna, they cried, where are you? What's the matter? When they reached his front door, they peeked inside and saw Krishna stretched out on a couch, his mouth curved in a happy smile. To their anxious inquiries, he replied sleepily, oh, I'm sorry, I just can't eat any more cheese today. But Lord, who fed you? No one else brings you cheese in the morning. Oh, he replied, that fellow Vyasa on the other side, he fed me too much already. Vyasa, you see, had been thinking only of Krishna as he ate. His body swallowed the cheese, but Krishna got all the benefit. Thus concluded the master, should one act in the world, think always of God. Ask him in everything you do to do it through you. Jai Guru.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to have a performance of Krishna and Sudama's play about their friendship. I'm sure many of us have heard our grandmothers and our mothers tell us stories, bedtime stories, and Krishna and Sudama have been part of those. And we have, at least I remember from my childhood, used to listen to these stories and be very inspired. So please welcome our play, Sunday school children who are going to perform this play.
Krishna and Sudama, I want you both to go to the forest and cut some wood for the ashram. Here is some poha for lunch.
Yes, Guruji. Yes.
Krishna and Sudama went to the forest. Krishna cut wood with full concentration, whereas Sudama did not work attentively, whiling away his time. This continued the whole morning. At lunchtime,
Sudama. Sudama, I'm hungry. Let's eat the poha which Guru gave us.
Sorry, Krishna. I ate all poha. I thought you wouldn't like it.
Let's go to ashram.
Krishna didn't mind and they both went back to the ashram. This made no difference to their friendship. After many years, Krishna and Sudama grew up. Krishna was now the king of Dwarka and Sudama had a wife and children, but they were very poor and finding it difficult to make ends meet. One day, Sudama was thinking about how he was going to continue to feed his family.
Sudama, there is very little food left. How long will all this go on? Out of whatever little food we have, you always offer some portion to Krishna as bhog, and then you will feed the children and me. Sometimes, why don't you take help from King Krishna, your old friend?
Yes. Yes, you are right. I can take help from Krishna. He's my very good friend. But I can't go empty-handed. I must take something for him, something as an offering. What can I take?
Sudama recalls the childhood incident where Sudama ate all the poha without sharing with Krishna. So he thought it would be good idea to take poha for Krishna.
Yes. You can give me poha. That would be nice.
Okay, I'll prepare it.
Sudama left for Dwarka. On the way, he was wondering, would such a great king remember me? After walking for a few days, he arrived at the palace gates of Dwarka.
Wait. Wait, who are you? Where have you come from? What business do you have in King Krishna?
I am Sudama, King Krishna's friend. Please let me in.
This is not possible. Look at you.
Please, we both were childhood friends and studied in Sandeepan Muni's ashram. Please let me in. I'm in great need to meet him. Krishna, my friend.
Hearing Sudama's voice, Krishna came running out to meet him.
Sudama, my old friend. Come.
Krishna took Sudama in and washed his feet. Then they had a royal meal.
Thank you, Krishna, for your hospitality. But now I must take your leave.
But at least feed me the poha which Babiji had sent for me.
But dear Krishna, you have royal meals. How can you like this small homemade poha?
No, feed me. I insist.
So Sudama fed Krishna poha. And Krishna burped.
I have eaten the bhog which you have offered me. I have eaten many royal meals, but today's poha really satisfied my hunger. Thank you, Sudama.
Thank you, my dear friend Krishna.
After meeting Krishna, Sudama forgot all his worries and was walking happily back home. Suddenly he recalled how his wife would react after knowing that he did not ask for any monetary help from Krishna. Now he arrived near his place, near his home.
How can a castle be here? This is not my home. I'll go check out. Seems intention I forgot where my home was.
So Sudama turned and in a while came back to the same spot. Seeing his wife and children dressed in rich clothes, he was stunned.
Oh, you have come? See what has happened.
But how come this castle be in place of our hut, and how come you all are so well dressed?
One morning, magically, a box of inexhaustible treasures appeared. We have become rich, Sudama.
Oh wow, let me see what is inside.
Sudama went running to his prayer room, fell at the feet of Krishna and cried.
When anyone with a pure intention offers me even a leaf, a flower, a piece of fruit or water, I accept his offerings as a symbol of his love and devotion.
When we call out to God with our heart and soul, our prayer always reaches Him. Always offer God your food before you eat. Thus, from the story of Krishna and Sudama, we learn about divine friendship and how God is our true friend always, bestowing us with His unconditional love and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and encouraging these young talents, and I hope you enjoyed.